Today, I want to talk about my latest book, Unsung Hero. It was published by the YoungOak Kim Center for Korean American Studies in April of this year. It's a translation of a Korean book. It's called Beautiful Hero, YoungOak Kim. And it's a story that I feel everyone, regardless of your ethnicity, race, and background, should know. And by the way, how many of you ever heard of YoungOak Kim? Oh, at least there are some. I've been giving a talk on YoungOak Kim for about several years here in Korea, and it's very rare that anyone ever heard of who the heck YoungOak Kim. It's very rare, but at least some of you know of him. And if you paid some attention particularly in May this year, 2011, MSN.com selected 16 most important war hero in America, including George Washington, Robert Lee, MacArthur, Eisenhower, and YoungOak Kim. It was one of the 16. So, I want to really talk about who he is, what he has done, and what he stands for, and why we need to remember him, and not only as a war hero, but humanitarian who did a great work before he passed away in 2005. So let me just begin. That's him. That's his picture before he passed away in 2005. I mean, these are some of the names that MSN.com came up with. These are the list. I mean, I probably don't need to say any more, right? It speaks for itself, right? I mean, these are the names that you learn in elementary, junior high school, and high school, in colleges and universities. I mean, his legacy is such that not only Koreans and the Korean Americans, but all Americans should know. And by the way, that's the reason why I felt compelled to name my research center, Korean American Studies Center at UCR, as YoungOak Kim Center, YoungOak Kim Center for Korean American Studies. And the author, who originally wrote this book, he spent about 6 years interviewing him and visiting sites such as Rome and Bifontaine in France and Seoul here in Korea for more than 6 years. And he spent more than $200,000 of his own money to verifying the story. So the story itself reads like a novel, but it's a true, real non-fiction. And so he decided, by the way, next year is 20th anniversary of Los Angeles riots. And so next year it's going to be a lot of attention in Los Angeles. Most of the media will revisit LA, South Los Angeles. And in 1992, Korean American community in Los Angeles suffered tremendous losses and damages. And the author, Unsung, he decided that we need to have a role model for Korean Americans. And he came up with 4 major criteria. And did he or she substantially contribute to America? Or did she contribute to Korea? And can his or story help improve relations between the United States and Korea? Same thing. Did his story could help improve relations between Korea and Japan? These are the 4 criteria that he set. And he began cross out names if one doesn't fulfill all 4 major criteria he set himself. And in the end, the only person that left was YoungOak Kim. So, story begins now. Who is YoungOak Kim, right? Who is it? Yeah, he's a hero, but you know the term hero, it's not, it's not easy to really prove one is truly a hero, right? It's a very heavy burden to name somebody hero. I mean, it's not easy to name somebody like that, right? So you need to be able to verify, and you need to really prove that he indeed deserves to be a hero, role model that you should emulate. And one person who read the book in Korean, of course, is a former commander of Korean Navy, chief of Korean Navy. He said, YoungOak Kim is like Admiral Lee Sun-shin. And I'm proud of being Korean because he's a Korean. I mean, somebody who read the book. And so these are the parts made me shed tears. Sammy Lee, Dr. Sammy Lee, he's a 2-time World Olympic diving champion. He won gold medals in 1948 and 1952. So he's the first Korean descent to ever win a gold medal in Olympics. And he, Dr. Sammy Lee and YoungOak Kim, both were born and grew up in Los Angeles, and they were very close friends. And he actually read the book this year. I gave him a book, copy of the book, and he said, although YoungOak Kim was his dear friend, he knew very little of what he did during the time he served in the U.S. military in 1942 to 1946, and later on in Korean War in 1951 to 1952. So, it's a story, truly remarkable story. I mean, these are some of the things that some people who read the book said in a record. Now, these are the photos of opening ceremony of YoungOak Kim Center for Korean American Studies at UC Riverside. Since you guys are part of GNUCR, and that's the Dr. Sammy Lee, shortest guy. He's this short. He's only 5'2". He's only 5'2", but he stands tall like a 6-foot figure. I mean, he's very funny guy, but he's a doctor, medical doctor as a training, but he's still going strong, although he's now 93 years old. And now we contacted him a few days ago, and now he's kind of fragile. He's ill, so we have to hope and pray his health will take him to the 100th birthday. And this is a YoungOak Kim Academy that opened in 2009, Los Angeles Unified School District, officially named this new middle school as a YoungOak Kim Academy. I mean, that's a public school in Los Angeles. And we are hoping that next year the Los Angeles City Council will adopt a resolution naming particular street after YoungOak Kim. So we are hoping the YoungOak Kim Street will be officially designated by the Los Angeles City Council probably next year, early next year. So there are so many things are happening in the United States to commemorate, carrying on his legacy of YoungOak Kim. So I'm proud to be part of that. He's one of the, probably the only person who received highest military medal from, of course, the Republic of Korea, France, and Italy. So he received highest military medal from 3 countries, Korea, Italy, and France. Unfortunately, his own country, the United States of America, did not award him with Medal of Honor. But he received a second highest honor, Distinguished Service Cross, and many other numerous medals. He received more than 20 medals from the U.S. military for his services during World War II as well as Korean War. I mean, these are some of the things that, I mean, he received not only many military medals, but after he retired in 1972, until he passed away in 2005, he received numerous awards from all kinds of different organizations for his humanitarian services, particularly his work to support and help women, particularly battered women, and minority, Korean American and Asian American community, Filipino communities, children, adoptees, and I mean, these are some of the things that he's done. How many of you have been to Los Angeles? Okay, I don't know if you had a chance to visit Little Tokyo. Have you been to Little Tokyo? Yeah, Little Tokyo near downtown. No? But next time, if you have a chance to visit Los Angeles, do visit a Little Tokyo. If you visit Little Tokyo, there is a monument called, this is a monument called Go for Broke Monument to commemorate services of Japanese American soldiers during World War II. Remember, more than 100,000 Japanese Americans served during World War II to prove their loyalty to America. Remember, Japan and the United States went to war during World War II. So in order to prove their loyalty to America, more than 100,000 Japanese Americans were interned during World War II. And to prove their loyalties, more than 10,000 Japanese Americans, young men, enlisted in the U.S. military, and they shared many were killed in action. To commemorate their services, loyalty to America, they erected this Go for Broke monument in Little Tokyo. Next to that, there is a small, building like that, and there's a plate. It says, Go for Broke Educational Foundation acknowledges Colonel YoungOak Kim, chairman. This is a Japanese American Veterans Association. And chairman is Colonel Kim, Korean American. So this is remarkable, isn't it? Truly remarkable that is a Japanese American veterans who served during World War II to prove their loyalty to America consider Colonel Kim, the Korean American, as their hero, their leader. All right? Let's go to France. Let's change the location. In Bifontaine, France. If you visit Bifontaine in France, there's a small church. In entrance, there is a small copper plate to the left side. And it says like that. Anyone who speaks French, can you translate it for us? Huh? Yeah. Yes, please.
It says, to the left of the church door was wounded one of the heroes of the 100th Battalion, Captain YoungOak Kim, on the 23rd of October 1944. He succeeded in escaping with, or surviving with, whoever that is.
Yeah, he's man.
He was captured but succeeded in escaping.
Exactly, that's what he says. Well, actually, we don't need a full translation. We only need to all we need is Captain Kim YoungOak Kim, right? That's all we want to know, right? Well, but thanks for your full translation. It's an excellent translation, actually. You know, this small town is between France and Germany. It's a border between France and Germany. And it's a very strategically located position. And during World War II, both Allied forces and the Germans tried to capture and defend the small town. And more than 20,000 Allied forces were fought to capture this small town. And in the end, they succeeded. And yet, the townspeople decided to remember YoungOak Kim and put that small copper plate. So, you know, it's truly remarkable, isn't it? He was only captain. There were, you know, colonels, generals who fought to capture this small town, and yet the townspeople still remember Capitan Kim in France. So that also is a truly remarkable story. And so if you visit the small town in France, you can actually take a look at this. And I don't think I will be able to show you this, but it's a Korean NBC TV in the morning show. Morning White Show had a special documentary on YoungOak Kim. So I will skip that. And during World War II and Korean War, YoungOak Kim had to fight pretty much 2 or 3 different fronts. One, racism at home. It was a very difficult process. In fact, Asian Americans were not even allowed to serve in the U.S. military. U.S. military refused to enlist Asian Americans. So in 1941, when the World War II broke out, YoungOak Kim actually volunteered to serve U.S. military, but the U.S. Army said, we don't allow Asians and the Koreans to enlist in the United States because of overt or racial discrimination against Asian Americans. As you know, as you may know, Asian Americans and Korean Americans were not eligible to become citizens of the United States until 1952. However, the YoungOak Kim was born in Los Angeles, therefore he was American citizen by birth. Anyone who were born in the United States are citizens, right, legally. And yet, U.S. Army refused to enlist him because of his ethnic and racial background. Only in 1942, the President Roosevelt decided to sign a new executive order allowing Asian Americans and other minorities to serve in the U.S. military. And as a result, blacks fought during World War II, as well as Asian Americans in segregated units. Segregated units. So YoungOak Kim served in 100th Battalion and 442nd Regimental Combat Unit. Both are consist mostly of Japanese Americans soldiers, and he was obviously it was a mistake. He was assigned to 100th Battalion, or Japanese American unit. You remember 1942, Korea was colony of Japan, right? Yeah. And do you think Japanese American soldiers welcomed YoungOak Kim as their leader? No. So they called him Yobo. Japanese American soldiers called YoungOak Kim as a Yobo, kind of a looking down. Didn't like him at all. They didn't want him as their leader. And they also, obviously, as a part of the Allied forces, he fought against the Germans, right? I mean, that's Germans and Italians, the enemies. And of course, he also had to overcome the prejudice by Japanese Americans against Koreans and Korea. So he had to overcome all these barriers, obstacles. And I mean, at a time during 1940s, particularly in the South, in the United States, there were absolute segregation. Blacks and the whites had a separate hospital, separate schools. They rode separate buses and trains, water fountains and restrooms, all separate, segregated. I mean, that was a norm, right? And finally, draft legislation was signed by the president in 1941, and it passed by one vote, just one vote in Congress, and ended racial discrimination in the United States. At least now Asian Americans and the blacks and other minorities have a right to enlist in the U.S. military. Okay, like I said, when Japan particularly attacked Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, and President Roosevelt declared it was President Roosevelt declared that year of infamy that we will never forget. And a few months later, February 19, 1942, signed Executive Order 9066, meaning all Japanese Americans who were living in the West Coast would be interned. So more than 100,000 Japanese Americans were interned after February 19, 1941, and it was like a semi-prison. And they didn't know what was going to happen to them, their own families. That's when young Japanese Americans decided that we are going to prove that we are loyal Americans, and they decided to enlist, right? That's the unit. Japanese Americans, and this is the announcement calling all Japanese Americans to report to the Assembly Center. And they had 72 hours to report. They didn't have any choice but to leave everything behind. And so they suffered tremendous economic loss as well, right? And Kim was assigned to 100th Battalion. Obviously, it was a mistake. The commander said, you know, this is a mistake. I will transfer you out to another unit. And that's when YoungOak Kim said, sir, if you don't mind, I would like to stay here. You know, I'm an American, they're American, we'll fight as an American together. So he decided to stay. And Legend was born. And in the beginning, like I said, the Japanese American soldiers didn't like him a bit and called him a yabo. By the time the training ended, the Japanese American soldiers began to call him Samurai Kim. And samurai, the name samurai is the highest honor a Japanese American can give to one person. So by the time the training ended, basic training ended, the YoungOak Kim received a tremendous respect from Japanese American soldiers, right? Now, his unit, 100th Battalion, was sent. Now, how do I go back?
Click outside first. Put the mouse on the outside of that.
Left click?
Right click. Left click. Left click. And now you can use the arrows. Now you can hit back arrow. Try P. Oops.
Not working.
It's kind of awkward. Okay, upside down. We're getting there. Sorry about this.
Oh, okay, here we go. This is the map of Italy, obviously, and Allied forces landed in Anzio landing, and the aim was to attack Rome here, obviously here, and 100th Battalion was always in front. They were dispensable, right? And they suffered tremendous casualties, many. That's the reason why the unit was known as go for broke. They had to go for broke to prove their loyalty to America, right? And after successful landing in Anzio, the Allied forces were ready to attack Rome. However, at the time, the German tanks were much superior than Allied American tanks. And if it depends on the location, position of German tanks, if they ambush the Allied forces, the Allied forces will be wiped out by the German tanks. So they couldn't attack. So they keep track of German tank units, and they didn't know where the German tanks were located. So several months passed by, and the commander was really pissed. I need to attack Rome. I need to do it now, right? And so many attempts to get information failed, and several people tried to go inside the German line and capture POWs, failed. That's when Lieutenant Kim said, "Sir, I'm going to go in there and capture German POWs and bring them back." And so broad daylight, Kim and his one other man crawled into the German territory. I mean, he vividly described the scene here in this book. It's a remarkable, it's like a movie, it's a novel. I mean, it's unbelievable. It can't happen like that. I mean, but it did happen. And he was able to capture 2 German prisoners of the war and brought them back. And based on the information they gathered, they found out the German tank unit was not positioned, so they attacked, and they successfully recaptured Rome. So he's considered as a hero of liberation of Rome, and so he was instantly promoted to the first lieutenant on the spot by the commander. Why are you still second lieutenant? You just changed the rank on the spot, right? I mean, these are some of the things that I already talked about. And his unit began to march to northward. And you guys know about Leaning Tower, Pisa, right? Yeah. Anybody been there? So no one has been to Italy? Have you been there? Did you go up there? No? I did. Oh. Yes, I visited Pisa in 1978. Well, yes, I'm that old. And at the time, you still could, walk up to all the way to the top. But now, I don't think you can, right? Because of a structural danger involved. Anyway, the reason why we are still enjoying this Leaning Tower Pisa, a human treasure, we have to thank YoungOak Kim. Because he was a operations officer in charge of attacking town of Pisa. And he knew town of Pisa has a Leaning Tower as well as many other treasure. And he wanted to recapture the town without firing all kinds of artillery, gunfire, or Air Force bomb. So he devised a brilliant strategy. Fake attack. In order to recapture the town of Pisa, you had to cross Arno River. And the other side, there were Germans positioned. And this side, the 100th Battalion under his command. So he decided to carry out fake attack first day, 9 o'clock in the morning. And as soon as they entered the river, the Germans began firing at them. All kinds of, so they retreated. Next morning, he decided, same time at 9 o'clock in the morning, another fake attack. Second time, the gunfire was not as heavy as the day before. And they retreated back. And third day, they entered the river, began crossing, but they didn't encounter any shots being fired at them. The reason was the Germans ran out of ammunition. They retreated. So without firing a single shot, he was able to recapture Pisa. So now he's still able to enjoy this human treasure, and not a single building was damaged. Brilliant, remarkable strategy. And he had a special talent. He had a special skill that no one else had. The reason why Japanese Americans began to really respect him is because if you go with the YoungOak Kim, you come back safely. If you go with some other lieutenant, they don't come back. YoungOak Kim never lost a war, not even won a battle. The reason why that is because he had a special skill of being able to read map. Special skill. He said he could read map. He said if he reads a map, he can memorize. He had a photographic memory that he can recreate entire map in 3D. That's what he said. Yeah, 3D. Special skill. He exactly knows which building is where. It's all in his brain. So he doesn't make mistake. Whereas some other lieutenants, they are not good in reading map, and that's suicidal. If you go make a wrong turn, that's it, right? I mean, this is absolutely important skills at the time. Now you don't have to. We all have a GPS, right? GPS can take us to wherever we want. But we're talking about 1942 here, right? That's the reason why the Japanese American soldiers really began to. I mean, they literally says, "The YoungOak Kim saved my life." That's what they said. Right? So tremendous respect, right? Well, during the battle in Bifontaine, he suffered a tremendous casualty and heavily wounded, and he was able to. Still, he refused to surrender. And instead, he escaped safely, and that's the reason why the towns of Bifontaine still remembers him. Now, this is the picture of Los Angeles Times when he came back to Los Angeles. He was a war hero in 1945. His mother. It was very rare for minority persons to have a picture printed in Los Angeles Times in 1940s. It's very rare, but he was considered as a war hero, and that's one of the few pictures that we have during World War II. We discovered this picture from National Archives in Maryland. And he retired in 1946. This is another very interesting story. that he became very successful businessman. What kind of a business do you think he was in? Huh? Laundromat, right? Exactly, a laundromat. And we think he's one of the first businessmen in Los Angeles to start a laundromat. We think he's the first. Okay, before that, it was a hand laundry. You know, the Chinese and Asian Americans, Asian immigrants, were mostly engaged in hand laundry, meaning you do the laundry by hand, clean hand laundry. But now coin laundry, one of the first, and he made a lot of money. His income was 3 times more than his salary in U.S. Army, right? So he became very successful businessman. But 1950, he heard the news. What news did he hear? Exactly. War broke out in his homeland in Korea. Korean War. And the story of YoungOak Kim re-enlisting and coming to Korea itself is a story. That he enlisted and they sent him to information. He appointed him as an information officer, intelligence officer. Why? Because he's a Korean descent. At the time, United States military had very few enlistmen who spoke Korean, who understood Korea. He's a Korean descent, so they decided. He first came to Tokyo, right? That's where the headquarters are located. And when he landed in Tokyo, the headquarters company said, "You cannot go to Korea. You have to stay here and give us, you know, translation, interpretation, intelligence services." So if you pass any kind of a language test, and if you know how to speak Korean, you cannot go to Korea. That's what the regulation said, Army regulation. And the colonel, at the time he was a captain, a major. Major Kim said, "No, I have to go to Korea. The reason why I re-enlisted is because I wanted to fight in the front line." Unfortunately, he met many officers. He fought during World War II, including General Clark and many other officers. So he decided to pull strength, or everything he knew. So when he took a language test, they didn't even administer the exam. He said, "You are flunked." I mean, and that's how he was able to come to Korea. I mean, full strength, and all the connection he had, that's how he came to Korea. But he encountered the same problem in Korea, in Yongsan, 8th Army. They said, "You cannot go to front line, you have to stay here." Same thing, but you know, he pulled the same connection and all that. He finally was assigned to this 7th Division and Central Front. And his unit and his brilliant strategy, and because of him, the demilitarized zone, DMZ, moved up 60 kilometers. And because of his contribution during World War II, the Republic of Korea finally awarded him the Taehan Medal in year 2005, highest military honor anyone can get, right? So his story, but while he was doing this, he also took care of more than 500 orphans. And he was deeply moved by the poverty, hunger, and he decided this is not, it shouldn't happen like this. And by the way, when he was fighting for battle during World War II, many of his men were killed in action. And he promised himself, like this, quote, "If I survive this war, I will devote my life to the betterment of the community I belong to." This is the promise he made himself, and he kept his promise until he passed away in 2005. And he had many, many offers from both Democrats and Republicans to run for public offices, become a politician. He refused. Instead, he did more of a public services, establishing many new non-profit organizations, and women's shelter, and many other, right? And he's also known for becoming the first. And he has many firsts, but Battalion Commander in combat in U.S. military history, minority commander. He's the first minority battalion commander in U.S. Army history. Because battalion commander is mostly white officers, and the first time that minority officers were assigned as a battalion commander. It's a tremendous responsibility. This is the picture as a battalion commander in Mundun Valley inside the DMZ. And this is the orphanage that he took care of in Unsung, Seoul. And he later on returned back to Korea, and he was helping U.S. Korea military units to become more modernized, advisor. Now, finally, he retired in 1972, and because he was severely wounded during Korean War, and so his medical record was this thick, really thick. And as well as racial discrimination, he was not promoted to the general. I think he should have, but he didn't make it to the rank of general. So he retired in 1972. He had more than 40 surgeries. And so he kind of limped like that after retirement. But his spirit was very high. And his second life, this is the year 2003, 2 years before he passed away. So he was already ill. And yet, when the Korean adoptees had a camp, they invited him as a keynote speaker. And this is the picture. Can you locate where he is? Huh? In the center? Usually that's where you are if you're a keynote speaker, right? But he's not in the center. He's right here. So that's him. If I were invited as a keynote speaker, I would be here, right? But he's always behind the scene, that he lets somebody else take the glory, let somebody else take credit, but he always wanted things to be done without getting credit for himself. So this picture speaks for itself, but he was a very well-known in Japanese American community, and actually I can talk about my own personal connection with him. I met him first time in sometime 1981. But I did not know he was a war hero. I did not know what he did. I thought he was just another, ajashi, retired ajashi. He was very soft-spoken. He never bragged about anything that he did during World War II or Korean War. He just, he was volunteering for United Way at the time. He was volunteering. He was a volunteer for United Way, old man. So I did not know who he was. I mean, I knew, he was, officer who served during World War II, but I did not know what he did. But what he was thinking of doing at the time was he was, as a volunteer for the United Way, he conducted health survey for Korean American community. And based on the survey he conducted, he received major funding from state of California and established a Korean Health Information Educational Center, a nonprofit organization for the Korean immigrant community. So he was using his own reputation and clouts as well as volunteerism to serve Korean immigrant community. So that was one of the first nonprofit organization that he was able to establish, but nobody knows that he was behind that establishment of Korean health care. It's known as a care. Now it has annual budget of more than $5 million, serving a mostly Korean immigrant community, one of the very important nonprofit organizations. There are many nonprofit organizations that he established, including women's shelter and children, youth, and poor, elderly, minority. And so he was for underprivileged population. Although he was a war hero, he was against war. So he was one of the few former military officers who signed a petition against a war with Iraq. When President Bush announced the war attacking Iraq, he signed the petition. No, I'm against this war. So he knew the war was very cruel to women and children in particular. He was there himself. So although we are celebrating him as a war hero, I'm more interested in his activities after he retired from the military services. He dedicated his life for the betterment of the community, particularly those population who are being underserved, underprivileged, women, children, adoptees, right? So, and later on, he became not only the chairman of the Go for Broke Educational Foundation, but also he also served as a vice president of Japanese American National Museum. By the way, Japanese American National Museum, located in Little Tokyo, Los Angeles, is one of the major museum in the United States, and he helped to establish that museum too. He also tried to establish a Korean American museum, but due to lack of support, it's there, but it's not really viable, a vibrant museum, active museum. He also helped to establish Koreatown Youth Community Center in Los Angeles, as well as many other nonprofit organizations. So his legacy is being carried on by many people, and I, over the last 5 or more years, that I've been trying very hard to keep his legacy alive, and I am glad that I was able to name the center after him, the YoungOak Kim Center for Korean American Studies, and translate Korean book into English language. Therefore, a larger audience will get to know who he is, what he has done, what he stood for, and we'll all share his spirit. And the YoungOak Kim Center for Korean American Studies at UCR will continue to engage in major research projects involving not only Korean American community, but Korea. Here many Korean Americans are now residing here in Korea, returned migrants, and I'm interested in doing some research on that population, as well as Korean diaspora. Some of you may know that Koreans not only migrated to the United States, but also China. There are more than 2 million Koreans living in China today. More than 500,000 Koreans living in former Soviet Union, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Sakhalin Island, as well as Koreans in Japan. More than almost 1 million Koreans are living in Japan, and they are going through very difficult hardship. And story of YoungOak Kim may bring hope to many Koreans in Japan. And lastly, what I would like to end my talk is that he defined himself in this way. He said, I am 100% American, and I am 100% Korean. I mean, I think that really says a lot. And we're living in the globalized community, and you can do both. That's what he said. So I hope young people like you, hopefully get inspired by his story. And he always emphasized hope and courage. As a young person, you have to have a dream, you have to have a hope. But more importantly, you have to have a courage to act upon the hope and dream that you have. I think those are the two very important traits that young people should possess. And hopefully you can execute your hope and dream into reality. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.